First of all, before starting this rig, I looked at how other artists achieve their rigs by looking at animation reels from such as on YouTube, and then by researching how to do stuff like twist bones, splines, max script from such websites as Paul Neal and CAD2 Design, and this meant advanced techniques such as advanced sliders and max script could be learnt and implemented. Also, when I chose a mesh, I had to be careful that there was no errors, so I chose a dominance war one, which is used in dominance war competitions. And the one I chose was middle ground, not too hard, not too easy, as I didn't have previous experience. So the one I chose, I noticed, looked quite a bit like the Berserker from Gears of War, which I then researched how it looked in the game when being animated as such in the game. And then all this was aided by such books as Digital Creature, Rigging and Body Language. And then after all this research, I could then begin on creating the rig. And this is the mesh I was using. And while I was creating the rig, I kept a good layer convention and naming of the layer and bones, which enables me to freeze and hide things quite a lot easier. Like for example, this shoulder B as B underscore for blend, right RGT for an arm for right arm, then blend for the blend bone. And this means it can be selected easy without making mistakes. Also, a good colouring system was used. Example, IKFK bone systems are bright red and bright green. Also, the blend bones are split apart from left from right with a light coloured red and a light coloured green, which enables the animator to select things without accidentally clicking on other ones he didn't want to edit. Also, the blend bones have a good hierarchy system, like this thumb for example, set up so that when one part of a limb, the parent, the child, move, then by using the tutorials of such as Paul Neal, twist bones in the blend bones was able to be created, as shown by this bright blue. So for example, when I rotate the FK, or the FK controls, or the FK wrist controls, the twist bones move, which I added because I noticed a natural twist in arms when being moved, which was due to the research. Also, an IK system was built with elbow controls, which are done by a look at constraint to the actual elbow joint, so the animator can easily move the elbow. And in setting up the I could set up the IKFK blend system, which was set up like so that when it moves, it sets up a comprehensive blend. And I've also set up a slider control how much weighted to blend into IK or FK. For example, when I move it down, it will go one to the other, which is handy for the animator if he wants to set up a certain kind of weighting of blend. Also, I created using max script this here for the right arm and the left arm, which creates two buttons and a snap feature. So if I want to get my IK to my FK, I can click on this for example, and it will move directly to it. And this can be undone pretty easily, like so. And there you are, easily controlled and maintained for the animator. Also, spine controls are set up by using up node controllers, point helpers. So for example, this spline control rotates the thing like rotates the spine like that. These controllers affects the top of the spine like so. The up nodes affect the rotation of the actual bones, which is handy for the animator. Also, with the legs, the same IKFK system blend was used with the sliders, but this legs use a triple IK system, which is linked to this spline control to make it easier for the animator, which all the controls are linked to, for example, which also has a comprehensive slider control, so the animator can easily access all these functions without having to go through manually editing things. Now we're going to discuss the rig's hand controls. First of all, there are these gimbals which each control the fingers and thumb, which enable the animator to manually move them. But to make it easier for the animator, this GUI spline control has been added, like on the feet, but with all these different sliders to move each of the fingers and the thumb in different axes. I will now demonstrate this by moving the thumb. As you can see, this enables the animator to have much easier access to the fingers without trying to manually do everything. And this is also the same for the left side. Also, appropriate skinning techniques was used through learning Paul Neal, so that the edit envelopes could make the legs move good without distorting any of the mesh, like this for example. And also with the spine controls, for example. There. Now for the discussion of the strengths and weaknesses of the workflow and suggest improvements. The main strengths which enable me to gain knowledge to try techniques which were not discussed in the lecture, like twist bones, max script buttons and more complex sliders using wire parameters, was because of a well-maintained workflow, and this enabled me to do all those things I just listed, which will make it easier for the animator. Another strength of the rig is that it has appropriate controls for each part of the limbs of the character. The rig can be appropriately animated by the animator manually, and also by using the sliders, splines and max script buttons, like for example the IKFK blend slider to control which way the blend leans towards. And this was accomplished by learning tutorials and reading relevant material. But one of the main strengths of the rig is, while doing the making the rig, all for the workflow, appropriate naming convention of the objects in the scene and the layers and layer creations enable me to easily freeze or hide different parts of the rig, which will give me and the animator much more easier access to different parts of the rig without accidentally selecting others. Also, because of good time management, any problems which arose, I had plenty of time to post on forums such as maxforums.org, and also to ask questions in support sessions, which led to me producing better work and attempting more complex features. The weaknesses for my workflow was that because of the Max corrupting some files, I was playing a bit of catch-up, which meant more complex script features was not able to be done. Also, if the rig was attempted throughout the semester more often than it was, more questions could have been asked and more complex features such as max script and more controls could have been added. Improvements. Next time, if learning is committed before this semester starts, a more complex mesh like the daemon could have been used. Also, the main thing that could have been improved was adding max script buttons to the hand controls, for example, which would have led the animator to having a bit easier controls. Also, there was a few recommended improvements by the accomplished animator Paul Neal, as you can see through this email, which was to create twist bones in the thighs.